To Tennessee now, where new immigration laws take the crackdown a step further. The laws create sweeping criminal penalties for anyone who provides shelter to an undocumented immigrant. The American Immigration Council says they make it illegal for a church to offer temporary shelter, a landlord to rent out a room, or a family member to live with someone who is undocumented. So CBS News correspondent Nicole Valdez is live in Nashville. So Nicole, why don't you walk us through these new laws and what it means for people who live in Tennessee?
Julie, good evening. Well, many of the undocumented immigrants living in this state fear they could find it harder to find a place to live. It's why several immigration advocacy groups are in fact now suing against at least one of those laws, hoping to block it from its enforcement, which is set to start tomorrow, arguing it could put not only landlords, but churches and even family members at risk of prosecution if they simply help them look for a place to live here. The bill defines someone who is harboring an undocumented person as anyone who's providing shelter for financial benefit. So that could mean, as you mentioned, renting out room to them or letting them live in their home. The groups suing really argue that the law is far too broad and could target those who are trying to help immigrants who may have come to the U.S. illegally at first, but who may now have earned legal status here.
What reactions are you seeing and are you getting in the community? What are people telling you?
Well, clearly a lot of people find this to be a very controversial law here. This is, in fact, one of several new laws that will take effect tomorrow in this state, and others are just as much being discussed here that include, in fact, criminalizing certain elected officials if they choose to vote to make a city or a community here part of a sanctuary here. Any local leader in the state of Tennessee who chooses to vote for a sanctuary policy, really in any city, could be charged with a Class E felony, all while a new agency focused on immigration will soon be formed here. The state's official Centralized Immigration Enforcement Division will be enacted tomorrow, and it plans to allocate state resources to local agencies to ensure that they're cooperating and assisting federal authorities in immigration enforcement. It will also provide incentives for local police departments, for example, to enter into those 287G programs that grant officers certain powers in assisting with deportations of anyone suspected of being in the country illegally. Another highly debated issue that both sides of the aisle have strong opinions on.
The laws passed by our state legislature prove Tennessee continues to be the tip of the spear for the rights of our communities and the future of our multiracial democracy.
Even if you disagree, the law is the law, and President Trump and his immigration enforcement officials, including Border Guard Tom Homan, have made it very clear they are going to come into our communities in our state, and we want to make sure that we're all cooperating with their efforts.
Now, we'll see where that lawsuit challenging at least that first law we talked about goes, but clearly for now, a very contentious issue here, and some arguing that the state of Tennessee may in fact be trying to regulate a federal issue here in one state. Julie.
All right, shalom, shalom, shalom. All praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, which is to say in the Paleo Hebrew, Yahweh, which is the name of our Heavenly Father, meaning He is, Bahashem, meaning in the name, Yahweh Shai, meaning He is our salvation. And that is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, a so-called black man, who, by the way, only came for the Israelites, which brings us to our topic today, harboring an undocumented or illegal migrant could end up giving you a Class E felony. All right. Now, this is the new law that has been passed in Tennessee. All right. Which is going to eventually sweep across the whole country. All right. They're doing things incrementally. All right. They're doing something in this state different from what they're doing in that state. But eventually it's going to be law or mandated throughout the whole land. All right. Like they got ICE heavily, being presented in Los Angeles. All right. Getting undocumented immigrants. All right. Now here in Tennessee, they passed the law where if you provide shelter or harbor an undocumented immigrant, you can what? Face a Class E felony. All right. Whether you are a church that's providing shelter or harboring an undocumented immigrant, whether you're a landlord, let's say you got some unvacant rooms and you want to rent them out to an undocumented immigrant, you can be forced or you can be hit with a Class E felony. Okay? Let's say, for instance, you have a grocery store and you're providing food for that undocumented immigrant. Well, guess what? You risk taking a chance of getting hit with a Class E felony. All right, now, as of right now, there's no charge if you provide food. They're just saying shelter. But you have to see the bigger picture that's being painted abroad, okay? Under the guidelines of undocumented immigrants, anyone can fall under that, which is what they're setting the stage for in this rebuilding of the new America, okay? Because if you don't have proper identification, I'm not even going to say paperwork, because under the new America, it's going to be digitalized. So you're not going to be asked to show proper paperwork. You're going to be asked to what? Scan your microchip. All right. Under this new America or this new world order, your proper identification or verification is going to be on that microchip. And if you don't have it, guess what? You're going to be deemed or looked at as an undocumented immigrant or migrant. And anyone that's harboring or sheltering you are going to face jail time, a Class E felony. That includes your family. Let's say your family has took the microchip and you want to go there and, sleep for a couple of days. All right. Well, if it's been shown to the proper authorities, whether it be it by a microchip, whether it be by surveillance, that you've been hanging out or being, provided shelter within your family, or like they said, your landlord or a church, guess what? Those individuals risk the chance of what? Them getting a Class E felony, okay? Now let's look at a Class E felony and what does it entail. It says a Class E felony is a mid-level felony, 5th highest in the class ranking. It's generally considered less serious than other felony classes, but can still have a significant impact on a person's life. Sentences can range from probation to life imprisonment. So you think your family member is going to want to risk, getting locked up for you because you don't want to get on board with the beast system of being, as they say, locked up and thrown away with the key? No. Depending on the state and the specific facts of the case, Class E felonies may include violent crime and drug crimes, property crimes, sex crimes, other crimes such as welfare fraud, falsifying business records, and criminal sale of cannabis, okay? So more than likely, this is going to fall under the other crimes, all right? Falsifying, okay? Because now you're evading your taxes by not having reported that income that you're receiving from an undocumented immigrant, okay? Because while you're aiding and abetting that undocumented immigrant who's not paying their taxes. Because this is what it all comes down to. It's not the fact that these people are over here undocumented. It's the fact that they're over here undocumented where they can't be taxed, okay? The beast system wants its piece of the pie, its share of the pie. They could care whether or not, you over here illegal. It's the fact that you're not documented and they can't make money off of you, okay? If they was able to make money off of you and was able to get their fair share of the pie, they could care less how you got over here, all right? But it's that you came over here in their eyes deceitfully and you're not documented, so now you can't get taxed. So you get paid under the table. You're being provided room and board under the table. You see, all of this is non-taxable. Here it is, you paying somebody room and board with cash, but that can't be tracked or traced. Okay, so what are they going to do? They're going to punish the person that's providing you with the room and board, and you as well. You that they're going to ship and deport or hold you in a detention center, and them they're going to hit with a Class E felony where they can serve what? Serious prison time. Okay, so this is the new law that has now taken place in Tennessee. Okay, which, hey, it's going to spread throughout the whole land, man. All right, and we know they're setting the stage for when persecution come, and those that would help us, you know, speaking of those of us of the elect, those individuals that would help us, they're going to be what? Fearful of giving us room and board or whatever, because why? The decree is going to be put out. If you help any of these quote unquote fugitives, you will be hit with felonies and could potentially face lifelong imprisonment. That's going to shake up a lot of people, including your own family members. Okay, we're going to be looked at as criminals, as fugitives, as those on the run. Because why? We don't want to acquiesce or come to the agreement of being chipped and be part of this beast system. Okay, so this law has taken into place, has set the precedent for what's coming down the pipeline throughout the rest of the land. Okay, make no mistake about it. All right, so if you are found giving shelter or harboring undocumented immigrants as it currently sits, you will face a Class E felony. And once they switch over and bring forth everything how they want it, if you are found harboring or providing shelter or food or anything for a undocumented, non-microchip citizen, you will be faced with likewise punishments. Okay, so now let's get a few precepts and then we'll go from there. All right, this is the book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 16, and we're going to jump down to the 40th verse. It reads, O my people, hear my word. Make you ready to thy battle, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth. See? So we're not going to have the luxury of staying too long in one spot. Okay? Because why? We're going to be heavily persecuted. All right? For what? The fear of being imprisonment. All right? Those that would help us are going to be what? Fearful of being imprisoned under this law. Okay? Now, they're not outright saying it right now. If you help Black Hebrew Israelites, you will be in prison, but they're using the banner or under the guideline, if you help undocumented migrants. Do you think the elect of Israel is going to take the microchip? No. So how are they going to be verified and checked in this beast system? They're not. They're going to be undocumented. Okay, the paperwork or your birth certificate or any of that stuff isn't going to matter. Okay, it's all getting transferred over to the beast system. All right, and if you don't have the microchip to identify who you are, having that paperwork, you really doesn't bear any weight. Okay, because anybody can get hold of that paperwork and say that that person. But if you have the microchip, it's specifically designed for your unique individualism. That microchip goes to your body. Okay, now your paperwork holds weight because why? It's being transferred over to digital and being put on the microchip and being embedded inside of you. So now we can verify that you are who you say you are and not someone else that's pretending to be who you say you are. Okay, so it says, O my people, hear my word. Make you ready to thy battle. This is what we're doing now. We're making ourselves ready for thy battle. Okay, because we know eventually we're going to have to go off grid. All right, speaking of the elect. Okay, because you're going to have, you know, your 2/3 and a few other heathens that's going to try to go off grid for a while. but they're not going to last, okay? They believe that they can use gold and barter and silver and barter amongst themselves. See how long that lasts, okay? See how long you're going to be able to grow on your quote-unquote own land when the government can come and seize that land, all right? Sure, they're going to be met with resistance, okay? But guess what? The government or the New World Order is going to have its form of, combat. And they don't need weapons as the conventional firearms. They can use weather control weapons and send a tornado or a hurricane in your quote unquote land that you own and demolish it, all right? And write it off as a natural disaster, okay? So here it is. You done started a what you call that? A home? Nah. What is that called? Dang, I can't think of it. When you grow your own stuff or your own land. Well, whatever it's called, you done started it, and now a hurricane or some type of natural disaster that you perceive to be has come and demolished all your growings. It's not home. Dang. It was right there on the tip of my tongue. Can't think of it. But however it may be, you're going to look at it as something being a natural disaster when it's all being orchestrated by the quote unquote New World Order. Okay? To what? Not engage you with physical weaponry, but with the, weaponry of what? Machines like the HARP that can control the weather and so on and so forth. Okay? So we're going to see how those that are of the world try to continue to stay off the grid and when they ain't going to last, man. So it says, make you ready to thy battle. See, this is what we're doing now. We're making ourselves ready to thy battle by building up ourselves in the faith, man. All right? We're building up ourselves in the faith. So when this day comes, we'll be prepared, man. All right? We're constantly doing updates, reading articles, staying in the spirit, looking for, the day of the Lord to come. We're not falling asleep behind the wheel. And we're staying upgraded, okay? Give me 1 second. Homesteading, that's what it's called. Okay? Homesteading. So let's say you homesteading, growing your own food and everything else, trying to be self-sufficient. Hey, the government ain't got to send, the troops, or the New World Order ain't got to send the martial law up there to seize your land. They could just come by and send a natural disaster, or what you perceive to be a natural disaster, all right? But see, those of us in the faith, we understand we're not tied to any one particular place for too long, because we're gonna have to be on the run like pilgrims, moving from town to town. Why? Because there's going to be a constant threat of being persecuted. All right. If you get caught harboring a black Hebrew Israelite, a gang organization, you will be faced with life sentencing, imprisonment, a Class E felony, or whatever it may be at that time. See? So we understand. All right. And we're going to have to be on the move, man. All right. Not being so comfortable in staying in one spot for too long. Okay. It says, and in those evils be even as pilgrims upon the earth. Right. And then it goes into telling you, if you sell, be as one that what? Fleeth. And if you buy, be as one that what? Loose. Meaning what? Don't get too comfortable, man. All right. Don't get too comfortable. All right. This ain't our rest. Micah 2:10. For arise and depart, for this is not your rest. It will destroy you even with a sword destruction. Okay. So this is how we making ourselves ready for the battle, by building ourselves up in the faith. All right. Reading the scriptures and actually visualizing and seeing them come to true. I mean, seeing them come to true, but seeing them come to life. All right. By what? By measuring the times diligent. here it is. We seen that video in the beginning, and we can easily see how they're gonna swap it out. Hit you with the old, not the banana in the tailpipe, not the banana in the tailpipe, but the old swapperooey. Okay, I can't think of the word, but hit you with the okie doke. All right. Well, here it is. It was meant for the undocumented, quote unquote, illegal immigrants, but under that same pretense, now anyone could fall under that don't have the proper, quote unquote, documentation or digital paperwork. Let's put it like that. All right. This is Revelation 13. And let's just get straight to the point. Is it 11? Yeah, Revelation 13:11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. This is speaking of America. And he had two horns like a lamb, going into his democracy. And he spake as a dragon. When you go into that word dragon in the Greek is dracon, where you get the word draconian, all right? And these rules, these laws, they're draconian, okay? Because they're meant to what? Suppress the people, all right? Here it is, this man stole the land that now he's setting laws on, okay? Because why? We know he has but a short time, Revelation 12:12, okay? So this devil is getting ready to make the old switcheroo or the old sleight of hands where he's going to put black Hebrew Israelites under this guideline or banner of undocumented migrants, even though we're naturally born here on stolen land and we got all the paperwork. He knows by our doctrine that we're not going to take the microchip. So what is he doing? He's setting the stage to persecute those that would help us and us of ourselves. Okay, so this is really a genius way of going about directly targeting a specific group of people. Okay, use a law that is broad enough to where the people who don't have any idea can't see the inner workings of a law designed specifically for a set of people. All right, because by the time they realize it, it's going to be too late. All right, the lights have going to have been out or put out here in America. All right, and we know America's that beacon of light. All right, so that's why we broadcast live from America, man. Okay, because everyone else is looking to see how is this place going to fall, and it's going to fall from within, more than likely from within his own walls. Okay, here it is. You got the 47th president trying to secure the border when the threat is going to come from within. Okay, so we're reporting it live, man, to show you we're in the belly of the beast. All right, Babylon the Great, the United States of America, man. All right, these documents, these documents are going to be used to completely dismantle the whole system from within to build and bring up a new system. All right, civil unrest, those fighting against each other, even of their own household. Okay, because here it is, you may have your dad that wants to harbor you, but your mom may say no, don't let him stay here. Or you may have a wife that wants to provide shelter for you, but no, she gonna come to her mind that if I provide shelter for you, then I'm gonna go to jail and we're gonna lose the children. Okay, so that's why it says, can two walk together unless they be in agreement? All right, because this devil is setting division amongst every walk of life, man. Okay, every walk of life, this devil is setting division. Okay, so you may have an uncle or an aunt, you may have a grandma or a granddad, you may have a co-worker that otherwise you will believe that were cool. Okay, but when it comes down to them facing jail time, they're gonna be like, nah, I can't do that for you, bro. I can't do that for you. Okay, I can't even give you no food, because they know through our phone history that it's more than likely that you was going to come here and what? Provide shelter, all right? So in doing so, I have to distance myself as far away from you as possible, okay? Because why? I'm on their radar, man, okay? So they know. And it says, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon, all right? This is speaking of this draconian rulership, okay? It looks good or it looks friendly on the surface, but once you examine it, further examine it, you see the implements that it's going to have when it's actually being brought and put forth to the people it's intended to hit. All right? So this is where we at with it, man. Under the guidelines of undocumented immigrants, it's going to narrow it down to those that don't want to be documented. All right? And we know it's coming for the quote-unquote so-called black Hebrew Israelites, those of us that know we in the truth, particularly the elect, okay? All right? Because this devil knows he has but a short time, all right? This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 3. For when they shall say peace and safety, so here it is, they not worried about you that don't have a document right now. It says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then what? Then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. See, you ain't going to be able to escape if you don't have this chip. You're not going to be able to buy, sell, or anything else, man. All right, so they're making it very difficult, for those that claim that they believe to actually believe. But those of us that are of the elect, we already know, man. Why? Because we're making ourselves ready for the battle, all right? This is what we've been preparing for. It's the battle, man. And by getting ready for the battle, we stay in the scriptures, man. It's just that simple. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. All right? So this is what we've been telling you, man. Okay? They putting these laws into place city by city, town by town, state by state, man. All right? Until the whole thing is put up, meaning the system, and they can just make it one law for the whole land, okay? And everywhere else, okay? So you've been warned. You're seeing the rebuilding or the rise of a new system being put into place right before your very own eyes. Down south here in Florida, alligator Alcatraz, further up north, you got a law that if you harboring undocumented immigrants, you will what? Be faced with a Class E felony potential. Out west, you got what? A constant presence of ICE agents, which is ICE, an acronym for Immigration Custom Enforcement. Okay, that's a heavy presence of getting illegal immigrants. You can see how this is all going to work integratedly or entwined. Like it's all going to work beautiful for this beast system. They got the big beautiful bill, which gives over $47 billion in ICE. Okay, now ICE is going to have enough money to program and fund the whole country of having these ICE agents where they can what? Check and come to your house to see whether or not you're harboring illegal or undocumented immigrants based on what? Data like phone records. Okay, and if you're found harboring an illegal immigrant, you're going to be potentially facing prison time, and that illegal or undocumented immigrant is going to be hauled off to one of these detention centers like alligator Alcatraz, okay? But I was born here in America. See, I have my birth certificate. Well, we don't know if that's truly a birth certificate or not. With, so many fakes flooding the market, that could be a fake. But see, if you got your digital chip, then we don't have no choice but to believe, okay? Because we know that digital chip has everything on it, okay? And it's specifically designed for your body type, all right? So For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Okay? So this is why we're making ourselves ready for the battle, man. All right? The writings are on the wall, okay? They're putting the system up in right before your very own eyes, all right? With a law here and a law there, with presence here and with presence here. What did Yahweh Shai say? He warned us that. What is that? Matthew 24? We're seeing the beginnings of it right now. The abomination of desolation. This is Matthew 24 and 15. It says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth it, let him understand. See, we're seeing the abomination, these particularly, Roman Edomites under this rulership with a heavy presence of ICE. We're seeing it in California, but soon it's going to be nationwide. It's going to be in your very own backyard, your downtown metropolitan area. You're going to see ICE heavily presence of ICE. Chariots, their tanks, their horses, their armor, everything, man. That's how you know the end is near. It says, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let him which be in Judea flee into the mountains. See, this was the warning that Yahweh Shai gave the Israelites then in 70 AD when they see the abomination of desolation, speaking of the Roman soldiers, a heavy presence in the Holy Land. Let him that readeth fleeth into what? The mountains, which were our people that could afford and make the pilgrim or journey, went into the interior parts of Africa and later on fled to the west coast of Africa, all right? Because they saw the abomination of desolation in the Holy Land, Judea, okay? And they fled, all right? Now, the ones that couldn't afford it, they was left there to fend for themselves, man, which is where you get the Roman and Jewish war, all right? But those that could afford and took the heat, they fled into what? The mountains, into the interior parts of Africa, and later on to the west coast of Africa, where we were rounded up and gathered and sold by the way of the transatlantic slave trade, okay? So the same thing is going to happen again, okay? We're seeing a presence of the abomination of desolation in what? The sense that this ICE is now being in the midst of Israel or Judea, and what? That is only coming after the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. Right now, it's just the Native Americans, well, the Latinos to be specific, but later it's going to come from the Native Americans and eventually Judah, okay? Because why? Hey, the elect ain't going to take that microchip, man, okay? You see, and we're going to have to be on the run, man. It's just that simple. We ain't going to have the luxury of staying too long in one place and building, lasting, meaningful relationships and coming and talking to it. Hey, we're going to be on the run, man. And they're going to be individuals that even though they could face prison time, they still going to help the servants, the prophets of Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. Because in doing so, they're going to be blessed. All right? So don't have no fear, man. When it comes, it comes, okay? We just got to be prepared and making ourselves ready for the battle. So this is what we're doing through the lessons, through the live streams, through current events, do everything we can, man. And ultimately, do praying that we are of that elect, okay? So we're going to finish up and close out with that and go to 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 8. And it reads, be sober, be vigilant. See? Why worry yourself when you know these things have to come to pass? You just have to get ready mentally and spiritually. So be sober, be vigilant. Why? Because your adversary, the devil, the so-called white man, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour. He wants to strike and put that fear or doubt in your heart, your mind, that if you get caught you going to prison. Okay, well, we know. Revelation 20:4. All right. Some was beheaded for the testimony of Yahushua. Revelation 2:10. It beat our faithful into death, and you will receive a crown of life. Some of us going to be cast into prison for 10 days, a period of time. If that so happen to be a life sentence, well, you know you ain't got that long. All right? Because we at the end. Because why? Prophecy is being fulfilled. It's jumping off the pages. Okay? It says, because your adversary, the devil, which adversary just means, one that goes against. So the adversary, the one that goes against, is the devil. He deceives. All right? Of what? The word. He telling you one thing, but he ain't telling you all the things. Okay? A lot of individuals is going to fall under that undocumented migrant status, even if they're born here in America. Okay? It says, as a roaring lion walketh about. He's not running or skipping. He's walking, because why? He's making sure he's dotting his I's and crossing his T's and flipping over every rock, not leaving no rock unturned, to make sure he got everything in place for when he turns the lights off and he can bring in his new world order. It says, seeking whom he may devour. Right. And if you don't get on board with his program, he's going to devour you, throw you in prison, behead you, so on and so forth. All right. So we not to be worried. Why? Because we're sober and we're vigilant. All right. So that's going to conclude the lesson on today's topic. And with that being said, pray some moments edified through this lesson. And until the next time, if it be the Lord's will, stay strong, stay in the faith. We almost home. Shalom. Peace.